Well, good morning. It's great to see so many parents here for this little talk. And interesting, on the way as I was walking through the lower school hallway, one of our young second graders said to me, "Good morning, Mr. Berger. It's the 100th day." And I thought, great, he's counting. And then it occurred to me how wonderful it is to be in a K-12 school. Because if I were to go into the upper school, into the senior lounge, they would tell me, "Mr. Berger, there's 76 days left." So you get both sides. I think that's great. I'm not sure when in the middle they make that change, but somewhere in there they count differently. Okay, so this is a talk that I give to parents, and I actually give this to the board. I'll give it to employees as well, because it gives all of you a chance to see how I view the school, where I think Cape Fear Academy is today and where I'd like it to be. And it's very useful for me as well as for you, because it actually gives me a chance to reflect and take time out from the day-to-day and think more strategically about the school in a variety of ways. And when I do these talks, I like to organize them around what I would call critical questions. All right, and for this year, I have the 4 questions that you see behind me. And I'm going to go through each one and come up with my answer to each of these questions. Now, this morning's talk is for you. And I know this is a big group, and you might feel reluctant to interrupt and ask a question, but please do so. This is your time. You can comment on what you see. You can add to it. You can question. I welcome that. All right, so let's get started. So the first question is, are we attracting and retaining the right students? This is a critical component of independent schools. And we'll get right to it. So one of the ways we look at that is what are the quality of the students that are coming into this school, and how do we think about that? As an independent school, we get to determine the types of students that we feel we can work with most effectively here. We can't work with everyone. That wide range of students that public schools have to work with, we have a luxury of deciding, because we're small, because we have a certain mission that we believe in, we have a narrow range of students that we can work with most effectively. And if that range gets too broad, we don't serve anyone's needs well. We have to focus that range. Okay, so you can see the entrance exam scores for the past 2 years. These are national percentiles, and in both reading comprehension and quantitative reasoning, sort of the math and the English part of schooling. And what this tells me is that we're admitting students who are, on the whole, rather strong students nationally. For example, in the lower school in 2012, 2013, the current year, the average student who entered our lower school has a reading comprehension score that's better than 83% of the students around the country. That's our average student. I think that's a good range. Actually, my ideal for Cape Fear Academy is that range ought to be somewhere between 80th and 90th percentile. That allows us to work with a really good group of kids who bring lots of different interests to the school. We're in the 70s, that's sort of on the lower end of where I'd like to see us. Okay, right students. Retention history. This is critical. Over the last 5 years, our retention has not been as strong as what it needs to be. You can see that the benchmark for day schools, NAIS, that's our national association, the 75th percentile is where I'd like to be. I'd like us to retain 95% or so of our students each year. Now think about this. If we're not at 95%, as we were this current year, from last year's students, only 90.7% returned. Okay, and that does not include graduating seniors. That's everyone who's eligible to return. A 5% difference, okay, from 90.7 to 95.6. A 5% difference is 30 students here. That's 30 more students that could be at the school if we do a better job retaining. students. There's a lot that goes into that. All right, there's a lot that we're working on, and Carla in admissions, as well as all of our faculty and staff are working to strengthen this retention. It's critical. Enrollment history. All right, so if you have that decline in retention, it's not surprising that you're going to see a decline in enrollment over the past 5 years. All right, and that's the most critical, probably, component of this whole talk, and what we're doing this year at school is to strengthen what we do, so not only do we attract more new students, we retain students better. I've put in historically because while we've dropped over the past 5 years, and certainly 5 years ago that was due to the economy collapsing, all independent schools around the country have experienced this. However, there are schools that have sort of come out of it quicker than Cape Fear, and we need to do it. And to say that the economy is the reason now misses some key factors internally and externally that we need to pay attention to. But on the other hand, we need to figure out and see historically where the school's been. So in 2003, about 10 years ago, we were only at 521 students. So while for the past 5 years, we need to reverse that trend, we also need to celebrate the fact that this school has grown considerably over the past 10 years. All right, so again, are we attracting and retaining the right students? Okay, next question. How well are our students achieving? All right, so this is obviously maybe the most critical question you can ask in a school, because while there's lots of things that go on in a school that are extremely important, social, emotional growth, how employees feel here, satisfaction of parents and all of that, parent involvement, ultimately, we want to make sure that our students are achieving well. So, I'm going to look at a few areas that indicate student achievement. This isn't an exhaustive list, but when I thought about how to think about this and how to gauge this, I looked at the following, and I'll share it with you. Okay, so we have these ERB achievement tests. So one of the ways that you gauge student achievement is through standardized testing. It's a way to compare your students to other students in different norming groups. So when we look at our students' performance, we look at their performance compared to students around the country, and students nationally. We also look at how our students do compared to their peers at independent schools. So the first item that's important is how do we do compared to public school students? And this is pretty powerful. So all of our students in grades 3 through 8, but in this particular example, we're going to look at grades 4 through 8, take these Educational Records Bureau standardized tests, and they take 7 subtests. So within this big test, there are 7 mini tests that you see indicated above. And on each of those tests, every student in every grade, well, not the average student in our grades outperforms their public school peers. By the way, for older kids in grades 9 through 12, I'm going to show you the standardized tests we take, and basically those are the national tests you're very familiar with, the SATs and the APs. What about students in grades pre-K through 2? Well, standardized tests are very, very unreliable for students that age, so we really don't have our students taking that. And then to norm those tests really wouldn't give you very good information. Okay, so this is sort of interesting. So we know our students are going to outperform public school students nationally on our standardized tests. We expect that. I just showed you the entrance exam. The average student who we take into the school is somewhere in the 70th to 80th percentile nationally. So if that's the case, well, just how far beyond the average nationally are our students? And so I looked at the testing from this current November and discovered that there are some really strong areas. Where is the average student at Cape Fear Academy? How does he compare to students at the upper end nationally? So we find the following. These are the tests, the subtests for each grade level, where the average student scores higher than the 90th percentile nationally. So the average student, for example, in the 4th grade here, did better than 93% of the students nationally in mathematics achievement. Average fourth grader better than 93% of the students nationally in verbal reasoning, and so on. So you can look at each grade level and see really strong examples of just how much our students are learning and how they compare to students nationally. Now, one of the things that might be interesting here, I think this is really interesting, is sixth grade. There's only one test on the sixth grade this year where our sixth graders, the average sixth grader, did better than 90% of the students nationally. Okay, that's the vocabulary test. So you might be thinking, so why is that? That's what I thought. So why, what's with our sixth grade? Interesting. That's the entry point. That's an entry point for new students. That's where we take in 15 or so new students who haven't come through our lower school, who've only had 2 months in our sixth grade. So it's a different mix. How much do 15 students affect the scores of a particular class? Well, if a particular class is only 50 or so students, 15 it will have a major impact. Now, another way to look at this, I'm going to come back to that in a minute. So the other thing we often hear is that for students, we challenge students at this school. That's one of the, I think it's a strength. We want to make sure every student is appropriately challenged and their scores are, and they learn. So one of the things is, what about our lower performing students? There are schools where they tend to get left behind or they struggle too much and parents worry. I think it's really important for parents to understand that a student who's in sort of the lower quartile of Cape Fear Academy still achieves considerable results. Again, I'm going to look at the fourth grade one at the top. What this says is the student in the 25th percentile at CFA scores higher than 80% of students nationally across the country in reading comprehension and 81% nationally in mathematics. So our students at in every level at our school are learning. By the way, if I move too fast through these, you can either ask me to slow down, and I will, or I'm going to post this for parents to see on our website. So the whole talk will be recorded, and then you can also go back at your own leisure and look at the data more carefully. Okay, so I'm going to go back to this value added of our CFA's lower school. All right, this is another way to look at what I was talking about before, about how students, how learning grows and continues. So by the final year in our lower school, the fifth grade at CFA, this is our current fifth grade, outperformed their independent school peers. Okay, this is now the data compared to independent school peers. So in the third grade, this is tests. When you take these 7 tests that I mentioned earlier and you look at our students' scores compared to independent school students, on average, they're very similar. So in the third grade, they're equal. There are no tests that have any greater difference than 5 percentile points. So when you get to fourth grade, you find there's one test with a difference. Actually, it's auditory processing for some reason. Our students scored 6% points lower than independent school peers. Then you get to the fifth grade, and you see there are 5 tests where our fifth graders outperform independent school students by more than 5%. Okay? So that means, again, I'm going to look at the best one here, writing mechanics. The students in our fifth grade, their scores on the writing mechanics test, how well they can punctuate, use grammar in their writing, they do 12% better than independent school students around the country. So by fifth grade, our students are really strong. And the thing I want to also emphasize about that, our students take this test at the beginning of November in fifth grade. So what they have learned on this test is more than the 2 months with their fifth grade teachers. It reflects what's gone on before. Okay, upper school students. So now we move into beyond middle and lower school. And it's important to know where we stand with SAT tests. And one of the things that I want to mention about as you look at these, probably what you'd expect, the Southern Association of Independent Schools, those are schools like Cape Fear Academy throughout 10 southeastern states. When you look at those test scores, and By the way, the one on here that I really am proud of is the writing. Okay, this is a writing piece of written work that all kids do now on the SAT, and it's graded. And it's not surprising to me that we outscore all these components, because that's what our students actually tell us when they come back from college, how well prepared they are for written work. What percentiles does that equate to? Well, our SAT scores, our average SAT scores put us in the 80th percentile nationally of students taking the test, 75th percentile independent schools, and et cetera. The other thing you need to know is that while every student here takes the SATs, and in the SAIS, it's close to 100%. New Hanover County, 68% of the students actually take the test, so you're starting with a smaller group anyway. And North Carolina Public Schools, it's slightly lower than that. I think it's about 65%. Yeah, question? Yeah. Right, right. It runs from Virginia down to Florida and parts of Texas are in it. Okay. So, one of the other things that this tells me too is it also talks to the atmosphere that we have in our upper school. And I can't, that's something that we sort of take for granted, that when you have 100% of your students taking this test and they're all going to college, and you're going to see some college data in a minute, it creates an atmosphere that's conducive to learning, where students feel good about learning and participating in class and contributing to the academic environment of the school. Yeah. The middle school data I had was back on the ERBs. Yeah. Ooh. Well, I can go back. That's a good point. I mean, I think there's only 1 or 2 slides in here for lower school, for middle school. And I'm happy just to show you that again. Here's one that talks about grades 6, 7, and 8, how the lower quartile does really well.
And I think I'm more interested in how they compare to the other independent schools. Because we had the lower school.
Ah, okay, yes. I don't have a slide that shows that, but the data is very similar. But I can do more of that for next year. More middle school independent school comparisons. Yeah, that's good, because I do have a lot of lower school, and then you're going to see more before next year. Yeah. I can put something together and see if I can include that. I'm happy to try to do that. Yeah. Yeah. All right. It averages about, the last 2 years, about low 80 percentiles.
And 9th to 10th? Those are the 2 big years.
9th to 10th is low 90s. 9th to 10th is pretty strong. But I will say this, every level needs to be stronger. But 8th to 9th is a critical year. It's a common time when students decide they want other options. Where I want to see that here is, I'd like to see us reach 90th percentile. 90% of our 8th graders return. You're not going to get them all. It's not right for all of them to return. Okay. Yeah.
I understand how you're comparing large groups with other large groups.
Sure.
But on an individual basis, it seems like you can't really say if you take a student who's in the 90% that they would not do as well in a public school. I see some things here like writing, I totally agree with, but maybe some of the other areas, I'm not convinced that these above average smarter kids would not necessarily do as well.
Well, on an individual basis, I mean, that's what statistics are all about. They can't guarantee you anything for individuals. What they can tell you is, as a whole, our students are learning more than students at other schools. And I've got more data that will show this. I mean, the statistics show that. But for any individual student, you're right. Any individual student, may do fine.
But you're starting with a group already of smarter kids.
Right.
So you would expect that as a group they're going to do better. So maybe, I guess, what might be more valuable for all of us would be
Sure.
So,
Yeah. I mean, some of them will. And I have some additional, slides. I'm going to talk a little bit more to that. But I will tell you that there's two reasons why our students do extremely well. One is just generally the quality of teaching. And second is how available our teachers are for additional help and support. And you may be able to get that at some schools, public and private. And you may be able to get it in pockets. But I will tell you that I haven't seen really anywhere the degree that we provide extra help here to kids who need it. I mean, we really do a great job. And this will talk a little bit more to that. Actually, when I'm talking about AP tests. Okay, so AP tests are national tests given to students around the country after taking a college-level course in high school. And there are many different subjects that you can take this on. I'm going to show you our math scores right now, and then a more general score, because this to me speaks volumes for how well our particular math department has done in the past year and couple years. So this is the percentage of students who earn a 3, 4, or 5. A 3, 4, or 5 is the college recommending grade. Some colleges will begin giving credit for these tests when you earn a 3, not too many more when you earn a 4 or 5. But 3, 4, or 5 is really the scores you're looking for. And what we find is, as you can see, 90% of our students who took an AP math exam last year earned that score, better than North Carolina and Global. If you break down onto those 3 different AP tests, again, you see the scores that our students earned last year. AP Calc, 100% got a 3, 4, 5. So this sort of gets to that question, very valid question about, well, how do we do compared to other schools, particularly independent schools? This is pretty interesting to me. And it's interesting for a couple of reasons. First, it talks about the overall quality of teaching in AP classes at this school. Okay, this is last year's data, 2012. These are considered the top independent schools in North Carolina. We require every student to take this exam. Right? So students who struggle in these classes also take the exam. They can't opt out. That's not true for every school on this list. I did check for Charlotte Latin, and they do require all their students to take it. The interesting thing is, and I haven't done this slide, the next slide. I haven't done the next slide, and I should do it, and maybe for next time. The interesting thing is that if you took our students, our average SAT scores in the upper school, we would be, quite frankly, at the low end of this list, the average SAT scores for our students. So if you look at that, where according to the SATs, our students don't have quite the ability as these other schools, yet on these AP tests, which measure specific learning and skills in a content area, we outperform these schools. Again, why is that? This goes back to the quality of teaching and the quality of extra help and support that our teachers provide our students. Now, I just want to show you nationally. I also decided, we have, how do we compare to boarding schools? A lot of our families look at boarding schools. There are obviously lots of reasons why you'd consider a boarding school. Different kinds of reasons, different environment. But I was curious about, well, how do the top national boarding schools compare on the AP exams? Interestingly, when I looked at half of the schools that I wanted to look at, their results, they don't publish them. All right? And you can make up your own assumption why some schools you might not want to publish them, but at least I'm happy that these schools decided to publish them. Yeah, there was a question. Yeah.
back up a little bit.
Yeah.
On the SAT score,
Mm-hmm.
you're giving us a general number.
That's our average score, right?
Can you break it down into 4 or 5?
I could. No.
Because then you move forward
Yeah.
to the AP class.
So, yeah, that's a good question. And I can look at the data. That's going to take more work. I can't do that in the next 2 weeks. But the interesting thing about that is 90% of our graduating class has at least one AP where they've earned a 3 on it. So that gives some indication that almost the entire school is taking the APs and doing well on it.
Are you saying that every student in the upper school has taken at least one AP?
No, last year 90%, not every, 90% took at least one AP and got a 3 on it. Which is not, well, I mean, that's not surprising. If 97% of the scores are 3, 4, 5, or 94, then 90% are going to get a 3, yeah. But that's a pretty powerful statement. Now, the interesting thing about that is the AP classes aren't for every student. Okay, and we had, I have to mention this because we had 9 of our alums back a few weeks ago to talk to all of our upper school students about what their college experience has been like. And there was a range of students on there from a range of colleges. And one of the young ladies, that question came up, talked about it, and she said, you know, I didn't take a single AP when I was at Cape Fear Academy, wasn't ready for it, but I am extremely well prepared for my college. And the interesting thing is she said particularly in the area of writing papers. So the other side of that is to be frank, while you certainly don't need to take APs to get into university in this country. But for the more competitive schools, you absolutely need to take AP exams and to take higher level courses. And how many do you need to take is the question. You know, to really be a good candidate for NC State, you need a minimum of 2 and probably 4. For Chapel Hill, you need 5. Thank goodness it's only 5. I don't know if you saw this a couple weeks ago, but Chapel Hill came out with a really powerful statement. They did some research on the performance of their freshman class in regard to how many APs they took in high school. And what they found that there was no difference in how well their freshmen did at Chapel Hill between taking 5 APs in high school or 10. Okay, now think about that. They were admitting students who had 10 APs. That's a tremendous amount of work in high school. All right? But what they found was there's no difference. The students who were taking 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 AP classes in high school did not perform any better in their GPA in their freshman year than students who took 5. Their expectation, by the way, was a 6. And now they've lowered it. What they've said is they're not going to give any more credit to students if you've taken more than 5 APs. So that's the new benchmark for Chapel Hill. Yeah, question. It's mostly U.S., but there are a lot of international schools whose students take the APs. But, yeah.
Why are you focusing on the APs? I mean, I do understand the numbers are good, but the normal standard is the SAT or one of the college entrance exams. So why is it more slotted?
I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, I'm happy to present more SAT data. But I just think this is the most pertinent SAT data. And the AP, I think the AP actually is a more interesting indicator because the AP is content specific, subject specific. There are many more tests, and the more competitive schools in this country require you to take AP exams. And it's a way to compare. I think it's just another way to compare. And determine how well your students are doing. You know, way back I would tell you the SATs are a little bit more of an aptitude test than the APs. You know, I hesitate when I say that because that's how they started. They started as Scholastic Aptitude Test. They don't call it that anymore. You know, they've gone away a number of years ago. So they realized that your student's background, their level of achievement, the degree of difficulty of their coursework also impacts your SAT scores. Anyway, yeah, question?
How much is, when you look at the SAT number, 2,100 or whatever, some colleges look at individualized scores as well, like how well they did in math versus other things.
They look at the particular AP test you took. Was that the question? Yes. Oh, they'll look at each score. Yeah, they will. But they're most concerned with just your overall score, you know, and fitting in their range. The other thing that's really important about the APs, I'm glad you mentioned this, is that may be the most significant way colleges gauge the quality of the curriculum at your school. So this speaks volumes to how well our students are prepared. They look at our average SATs from Cape Fear Academy, and they say, okay, they look at your grade distribution, particularly when there's grade inflation at a school. If you have 90% of your students doing A work and it shows up on their transcripts, colleges are going to go right to the AP scores and say, how well prepared really are your students? And when they see AP scores like this, they know Cape Fear Academy grades mean something. I'm glad you asked. That is really important. Okay. Whoops. Another question? Yeah, Hugh. Sure. Please. Yeah. Thanks. Yep. Yep. That's good. I appreciate that. Yeah. Question. That's a good question, and I'd say generally yes, but I need to look at that data. And that data is a little bit harder to come by, because on college profiles, usually they give the 3, 4, or 5. And then you get a more select group that just give you the 4 and 5. But I can try and do that for the future. It's a good question. I'll write that down. Yeah. If you can get that data for me, I'd publish it in a minute. I haven't been able to get it. I haven't been able to get AP data for specific schools. Okay. All right. Just following up on this, you've seen enough with APs, but there is a designation, AP Scholars. These are the percentage of students who take AP exams who get a 3 or higher on at least 3. Okay. College admissions, it's another way we determine how well our students are achieving. It's important. This is a college prep school. You need to be aware of this data. In-state college acceptances, 3 most popular schools. I think we do a real good job getting our students in. And then the other point about this is there's often a myth that goes something like this: because I go to a small public or small private school, I will have a more difficult time getting into school X because they don't want to take so many students from my school. I've never seen any data at any of the schools that I worked at that gave that myth any credence. In fact, it's the opposite. From really strong independent schools, students get in disproportionate numbers. And the reason, I think, is because those schools know that the students from a Cape Fear Academy or a Charlotte Latin are extremely well prepared. And so that happens. And one of the things that, you know, for UNCW is an example. All 18 of our applicants last year were admitted to UNCW. Certainly there was no ceiling or quota. If our students are qualified, they'll get in. Out-of-state, there's no way I can do data on out-of-state because with such small populations, the numbers are really, really low. And so this is just an idea of where our students, some examples from the past 3 years where our students get into school. You know, our students get into school, really good schools around the country. They get into schools internationally. And I'm very pleased with the whole college placement process here and how we present our students to universities. Okay. Next slide is going to do quick. This just shows you the statistics behind what was presented before. And you can see how many attend. And you're welcome to go back and look at this later. And the bottom note here, I think, is also particularly important. So not only are we concerned with student achievement and how well we prepare students for college, we're interested in how well they do when they get there. And we're in a good place here. Now, you might look at this and say, well, 2/3 of our graduates, why only 2/3 graduate from college in 4 years? Well, actually, the first answer is it might be higher than that. The 2 graduating classes that we looked at, out of the 50 or so graduates, we couldn't reach 6 to 10 of them. And so we included them in the percentage. So this percentage could be higher. We could have easily said, well, you know, out of the ones we know, it's a higher percent graduate. But then you can't compare your data nationally or to other schools. So to do it fair, you have to include everyone. So the numbers could be higher. But even if they're not, think about it. Within 4 years, 67% graduate. You know that many students, the number nationally, by the way, goes up to about 60% graduate within 6 years. Think of the added cost those 2 years have for students and families. If you can graduate within 4 years, saving a tremendous amount of money. All right. Oh, okay. So hard data. Very important to look at hard data. I also try to get a sense of our students' accomplishments and share that with you because the hard data is important, but other indicators of our students' performance also is worthy of mention. And you know, if you talk about the Fine and Performing Arts program, I think it's really strong here. That stat speaks volumes to what Becky Best accomplishes with our musicians. Our drama program in the upper school is fantastic. Hopefully, if you've had a chance to see a production so far this year, there still is one more coming. There's a middle school production coming up as well. Not just in the dramatic arts. You know, our yearbook won an award last year. And we have individuals who perform at the top level. The Gold Key Awards are our state's, and actually nationally, the top fine arts competition in the country. Athletics, important. I think our students compete very well. You know, the level of our athletic performances varies from team to team. That's to be expected. But I think a student who wants a really great competitive opportunity here can get one. Obviously, the most important thing that we do is our students' academic preparation and achievement. But within that, we also want to have a strong athletic and extracurricular program that supports other interests. And some general things that have stood out for me this year. This is actually from last year, but very, very powerful, that this is a statewide program. And we have CFA students who have earned leadership roles. And that's statewide, public and private. This is a project this year that I think is a phenomenal global project where our students are communicating with peers from those 4 countries, exchanging information about their community, both electronically and hard copy. This was pretty powerful. You know, we do these science projects every year, and they're great learning opportunities, but occasionally they go beyond learning opportunity to real entrepreneurship opportunities for students. And I'm not going to forget my littlest ones. So the little explorers who actually go out in the community and learn about environmentalism. It was terrific. You know, taking them away from the school from time to time, real strong part of that program. And same with the first graders who did this photo writing expo after doing pictures of various parts of downtown Wilmington, Fort Fisher, Wrightsville Beach, and sharing that perspective. Again, it's just another data point. Okay, so I want to move on now to strategic planning, because this is essential to talk a little bit about what lies ahead in the future. And you can see what our new revised mission is. That's been out there for a while. Our Vision 2018. Mission is our endearing values. This is what should be the bedrock of our school for many, many years to come. And I think it's powerful because it speaks to individual potential. As a small independent school, we have the ability to find and develop students' passions, to figure out where they excel, develop those talents. The vision is taking that mission and how does it play out in finding a goal for us to achieve. What do we want the school to look like, given that's our mission? The vision came out of that community visioning day where roughly 90 parents and employees got together and talked about our school and where we'd like it to go. And that's the vision that we've come up with. Again, what's powerful for me in there is it focuses our efforts over the next 5 years in key areas: diversity, academic excellence, character education, global awareness. So now you take that vision and work from what the Community Visioning Day produced, and the Strategic Planning Committee came out with the following 4 goals. I'm not going to read through the strategic agendas, okay? But empowering academic excellence is an area that we're going to focus on. And within that, we're going to focus most particularly on critical thinking, communications and communication skills, and in a globally connected world. Making sure our students understand their place in the world, understand that what goes on now in countries outside of the U.S. is critical to the U.S.'s future and our success. It's critical to their being prepared to be effective citizens in the 21st century. The next step, by the way, is after we have these strategies, is to set up specific initiatives to achieve them. Okay, and that will be done by strategic goal committees, which parents will have the opportunity to be a part of. Okay, those committees will be made up with faculty, administration, and some parent involvement. So if you have a particular interest in these goals, as I go through them, think about it, and when the call comes out for parent volunteers, submit your name. We're not going to be able to have everybody participate, but if you're interested, we certainly will. Okay, so you have empowering academic excellence, Strengthening our community's character. So we want to be a diverse community with a campus culture that reflects the best of the human spirit in beliefs, actions, and relationships. Okay, that needs to be will be at the forefront of our planning and activity over the next 5 years. What does that more mean? What does that mean more specifically? You can look at this. I've talked before in the past, and I'll say it again. I think leadership training is an essential skill that we need to impart on all of our students, and that's going to be one of the initiatives that will come out of this. A clear leadership program for our students in K-12. The third goal, enhancing our regional reputation. I think that the strength of this school is not as widely recognized in this community and beyond as we'd like. I'm not alone in that. I mean, that came out of our visioning day as a common theme from many, many parents and faculty and staff and board members. So we want to make sure that we are regarded as the undisputed regional leader in peak K-12 educational excellence. That's good. So I would say within the Cape Fear region, southeast North Carolina. And the final goal is really a goal of every independent school now in the 21st century, which is securing sustainable finances. We want to make sure that our financial future as a school is increasingly secure, and there'll be initiatives taken to that step. Okay. Again, I've moved through this part pretty quickly. I can't emphasize enough how important it is. This plan will guide our efforts and our resources over the next 5 years. And if we achieve it, the school will be in a tremendously positive position. So, more specifically, what lies ahead for 2013, 2014? Okay, so much of this is not new. We've announced the one-to-one laptop program in grades 3 through 5. There'll be more of that in the coming months. We have a new greenhouse idea and theme that's going to be part of our science curriculum K-12. By the end of this year, we hope to have that greenhouse up. It'll be in the space right between this building and the gym. So it's actually that way. Okay. We have the leadership program and new overnight trips for grades 4 and 5 that coordinate with curriculum. Middle school. I've talked a lot about this at different places. I can't say enough about the strengthened advisory program. We need a program that really meets the adolescent needs of students in grades 6 through 8 who move from pretty much a self-contained classroom in 5th grade to a 6th grade where they have probably 7 teachers in a given day, 45-minute chunks of time, and social and emotional issues that develop along with their physiological changes. And to have a program that meets those kids' needs is essential. Helps them deal with those changing bodies, changing academic environments. So the new program will entail a period every day that will be an advisory period, where students will check in at the end of the day with their advisor, who is a faculty teacher who works with 8 to 10 students on a daily basis. Comes at the end of the day because it can help center students at the end of the day. How did your day go? Do you have your homework? Oh, really? Can you show it to me? Do you have your books to do all your homework? You know, these are 6th graders. Sometimes these are juniors and seniors too. But if we do this better in 6th grade and 7th and 8th grade, we'll have less of a struggle with some of the older kids. So we need to do this with middle schoolers. It also gives us the time. Okay, you don't have your math homework? Okay, check with Sally next to you. Oh, Sally's not short of it either? What a surprise. Go see your math teacher. The whole middle school's on this schedule. Okay, so after you do your check-in the first 5 or 10 minutes, you can go see any teacher in the middle school and ask for the homework. Even ask a question about the homework. One of those days, 5 days a week, by the way, will not be an advisory day. That becomes your club day in the middle school. That's the other thing you need in the middle school. You need a more creative outlet during the day for kids if 90% of our students are playing sports after school, or at least once or twice, club time after school becomes really difficult. Not impossible, but difficult. So you need to give students in the middle school a chance to have clubs during the day. Upper school, by the way, already figured this out in their flex program. Right? So all those kids who have sports after school can do a club during flex, and a lot of that does happen. We need to do the same thing for middle school. All right, you can see some of the other. I'm not going to go through the math and Spanish programs that are on here, but basically the math and Spanish programs take our new mission of individual passion and excellence and think about that in a more strategic and mindful way so that we have different classes for kids in Spanish and math that better meet their interests and abilities. Okay? My experience, you can do that really well in English, history, and science through really good differentiated instruction. It's a lot harder to do it in cumulative knowledge courses like language and math, and that's why you have different tracks in math and Spanish. Okay. And upper school, some of the same, leadership program, environmental science curriculum, and the world language exchange program for grades 10 and 11, which we want to build over the next few years. I'm going to talk more about that in a few minutes because it's going to come up when we talk about tuition increases. Current events, I want to talk a few minutes about each of these items. Lower school and middle school director searches continue. We have search committees in each level. Some really strong candidates in the lower school. We have 50 applicants, including an internal candidate, Bonnie Prashard, who's strong. So we want to make sure we absolutely get the best person for these jobs. School safety. I think I have a slide. Okay, so our safety task force has started to meet. One of the things that I really felt was important is that we not rush into long-term decisions and then make a decision that may not be in the best interest of the school long-term. So we're going to spend the next few months as a group really going through best practices, having the Sheriff's Office, Wilmington PD come in, review our plans, look at what we can do to improve safety and security here, and come up with some really good recommendations. Again, I'm going to talk about the World Exchange Program a little bit in a few minutes to lay that. CFA Scholar, yeah, question?
Are you looking at other safety issues like maybe seatbelts on school buses?
Right now, this committee is tasked with armed and dangerous intruder.
I'm just thinking of that might be more an accident on school bus.
Well,
Likely to happen, and maybe that happens.
no, I think that's a legitimate question that we can look into. And certainly when we look at armed and dangerous intruder situations, there'll be some spillover into other security areas. But for this committee to really do its work well, we have to focus on one particular area of safety. CFA Scholars Program, I wanted to say a few words about this because I'm very excited about it, enthusiastic about this program. We had 85 students in here last Saturday taking the test for the scholars exam, for the scholarship. And here's the thinking on this. First of all, there are different levels of scholarships that we're going to award based on the quality of the students who have applied. We fund this program. The program is self-funding. So, for example, a student who comes in on a quarter scholarship pays three-quarter tuition. A student who comes here on a half scholarship pays half tuition. That will pay for the two full scholarships that we do offer, where the funds from those folks are very limited in what they pay. We will likely offer some $1,000 scholarships. The rest of those are funded by those folks paying full tuition. The idea behind this is while we have empty seats at the school, we have room to grow. We need to get really strong students into those seats. We need to bring more students and families onto the campus to even look at what goes on here. So if there are families out there who their first reaction is, I can't pay for that private school, or I know it's great, but I don't even want to look. If we can get them in to look, we'll be able to change some minds, because what goes on here really is exceptional. That's sort of the theory behind it. Now, in 3 or 4 years, my hope, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, my hope is next year the school is full. That's a hope. That's not realistic. But when our enrollment gets back up and it becomes strong, are we going to continue the scholarship exam? Probably not. Or if we do, it'll be in really small numbers. Will we continue it next year? I can't even say if we'll continue it next year because we have to evaluate it this year. It seems like it's going to do what we intend it to do. We have 85 students take the exam. And we'll find out. And the board has charged me with reviewing it. The board has asked me to present a report at the end of the year on whether this exam is effective, to what extent, and then we'll decide whether to continue it. Yeah. Okay, full enrollment is 678. So right now we're at 605 or so? 604. Thank you, Carla. And we've been as high as 673. So we'll go 678. Okay. Any other questions about the scholars exam? There was an internal component about the exam. We wanted to do something for our current parents in this regard, and also to make sure and secure retention of our top students. And we had a tremendous response internally. 122 students submitted the application. And I think Carla's going to announce the recipients of this tomorrow?
Yes, sir.
Tomorrow we'll announce this. And the last one I'm ecstatic about, because here, talk about enrollment. One other way you grow enrollment, again, is by getting more and more students in to see the school in different ways. You bring students in the summer, all of a sudden they're on campus, they see this building, they see the gym, they take summer camps with some of our teachers. All of a sudden they're a little bit more interested in Cape Fear Academy. And you do that by increasing your summer programs. Also, it's additional revenue too, by the way. So these are money-making ventures. 50 camps, some great camps. That's online now. You can go to our website and see some of the camps that we're offering. I have a first grader, so the first camp that came to mind is the American Girl Dolls Camp. I don't get that. I'm a guy, girls go to camp with their dolls. There's also, here's the other camp I don't get, but this because I'm an older person. What is it? What's that game? Minecraft. Minecraft camp. I think about this and I think, it's not bad enough my child's playing Minecraft at home all day. They got to go to school and I got to pay for it for camp. But actually, there's a lot of benefits in Minecraft, particularly if guided in certain ways, Minecraft. And there are a lot of other camps, but some really creative camps we're going to offer for kids this year. Yeah? Okay, that's a really great question, and it's one slide that I needed to show, and I didn't get to it this year, was where our diversity stats are benchmark, and we're at 9% students of color, and we'd like to be higher. So what are we doing to do that? We're trying to make inroads with the different segments of the minority community here. I've met with some different leaders already, trying to invited them to campus. Some of our local clergy have been to campus to see what goes on here. We've done some advertising in minority newspapers. We have 2 parents very generously funded a scholarship just for students of color entering in the 9th grade. We've trying to promote that. Right, we've got, there are outreach, we've gone to the minority professionals group, so we're trying to make headway. Quite frankly, one of the ways we're going to make headway is if we have a more diverse employee base and board. And so that's one of the signals that we give to the community that we're serious about diversity. So, and we understand that, you know, our board understands that too. So definitely want to improve that. Yeah. And it's on the strategic plan. I mean, that we're going to be held accountable for that. It's on the plan now, our goals and achieving it. Okay. Now, tuition for next year. I think that's where we've all been waiting for. Okay. So, let me talk a little bit about how we go about building tuition, which is like this. We basically ask all of the divisions of the school to think about what they need next year to not only maintain their current program, but to advance it. And they put in their requests. We also then hold, we decide which of those requests are worthy of action, worthy of putting into the budget, and which aren't. We ask people, if not, to operate at their standard, the same operating expenses they did this year. And then what we end up doing is coming out with what are the differences between next year and this year that generate a tuition increase, that warrant a tuition increase. And we start with employee salary increase. So we're committed to a 2% increase in employee salaries next year. We have outstanding teachers who've struggled over the last 4 or 5 years, as the economy has. We want to do a little bit to recognize their commitment. With that, you have health and insurance increases. And let me say, how we do this then is we take the increase and we project that on top of current tuition. So you can see what on a per student basis each increase is costing. Internet bandwidth, as when we go to a one-to-one computing environment, we want our teachers and students to be online more. We need a larger bandwidth in order to accommodate that. Okay, full-time learning specialist. Let me talk about this for a minute. So from the first time I interviewed here all the way through this year, when I talked with folks about employees, what the school needed, it came to the top of the list in every conversation. And it works something like this. The conversation went something like this. We have, as many schools do, roughly 20% of our students here have special needs. They are wonderful kids. They add greatly to our school. But we could do more to help them be successful here. And what a learning specialist will be able to do will be things like work with teachers specifically on learning plans. Make sure those plans and accommodations are implemented and implemented successfully. To coordinate with parents, to check in with parents on how your child's doing. To occasionally provide some instruction and remedial help to students to help them cope with and use and adapt to their learning disability within the school. And we don't have students here with major learning disabilities. When I talked earlier about the range of students we can be successful with, medium to higher level learning disabilities, we can't work with students here. But students with mild and slightly more challenging learning disabilities can be successful here. Some of them already are. They can have an easier time, and our faculty can have an easier time if we have someone who's trained in learning disabilities, whose job it is to work with teachers and students and families in this area. The other thing it will do for everyone, it will free up some time from teachers now, all right, to work with other students. So that's the need for a learning specialist. Full-time nurse, we have a half-time nurse now. She's wonderful. We don't want to lose her. And the benefits that she's already providing to our students and staff are amazing. We've got a whole wellness month that she's doing as a part-time nurse, where she's going to meet with students in each grade level to talk about nutrition and healthy eating habits. I don't know. I don't think so. It's in February, so she hasn't started it yet. All right, and you can see the cost for family prayers. Then additional programs. You can see the additional programs, what their cost is for lower school tuition. Okay, lower school tuition, 3.17%. Middle and upper school, a little bit higher, 3.89%. Much of that is the same, but additional programs, part-time Chinese teacher, and the World Exchange Program. Okay, so what I want to do is talk a little bit more about this World Exchange Program and how important I think it is to the school. Give me 1 second here. So the World Exchange Program does this. It gives every student in 10th grade the opportunity to spend 3 weeks, well, 2 to 3 weeks overseas, living for 2 of those weeks with a family, right? I'll say, for now I'm going to use Ecuador because that's one of our, we have a partner school in Loja, Ecuador. So students go to Loja, Ecuador. They live with the family for 2 weeks. That family has a student same age as our students. Our students go to school with that child. They tour the town of Loja with that child. They do excursions as a group. That family sends that child to the U.S. as well and stays with you. It's a real exchange. While we're in Ecuador, the group, either before or actually before and after, will see other parts of that country. So before you go and live with that family in Loja, you'll spend 3 days in Quito, the capital, and see the cultural sites in Quito. At the end of the trip, we're planning, after the stay in Loja, a 2 or 3 day excursion to the Galapagos Islands. Okay, this will be a wonderful exchange program. So you see the country, but you also build lifelong relationships with students in another country. You get to use the language that you've been studying for 5 years. It will inspire students to continue studying the language. All right, to pay for that program, all right, we want to build that into tuition. We want that to be a part of everyone's experience here, just like the senior trip is, where they all do an outward bound experience, just like the 6th and 8th grade trips are, the 3rd grade trip. This needs to become a component of the education of our students. So if we take a small tuition increase over the next few years of about $100, and then we start to save most of it, okay, and reserve it, we have to spend a little bit of it each year as new students come to this country, as our exchange students come to this country, we host them. There's a cost involved with hosting exchange students as a group. But as we build that fund, when students then enter in 10th grade after about 4 years, we'll have reserved enough money so that it's no longer added on to tuition, but it's a part of everyone's experience here. It's built into tuition, just like those other trips are. Just like the kids who are on different sports teams, it's built into tuition. Just like the students who take certain academic classes, it's built in. So that's my vision for this program, and I've seen it change kids' lives, have them experience the world outside of their hometown. And it's valuable. So that is why you have that World Exchange Program fee and funding for the part-time Chinese teacher. And upper school, roughly the same thing. Roughly the same thing. All right, questions? Yep, all the way in the back.
So when will they start?
Okay, so the exchange program for the next few years is voluntary. We'll encourage students to go, but it'll be voluntary. Okay? And I think it's about 4 years where it's set. Yep. Question?
Are you looking at the correlation, understanding the downturn in the economy? Are you looking at the correlation between the increases in tuition every year and the decrease in the population versus the rise? And then two, are you looking at the cost of our tuition compared to its peer group, not in the state that you're in?
Yes. Well, the latter was yes. We certainly look at our tuition. Yeah, the first part of the question, the second question I'll do first. Do we look at our tuition compared to our peer group in Wilmington? And the answer is yes. That was part of our strategic planning data that all those folks looked at. Quite frankly, our tuition is higher than all of our peers, but quite frankly, we don't have peers in Wilmington. I mean, I don't say that to be arrogant. What we offer here is far different than Wilmington Christian, far different than Coastal, far different than the Friends School. It's far different in the degree of the program, the class size, and the quality of instruction, and quality of opportunity, and the number of opportunities that we offer.
Mr. Berger, none of those schools are actually regionally accredited, just so you know. I mean, as
Thank you.
out of town are coming, you are the only tax accredited school. That's the regional accreditation required when you're going on to college. I mean, that's what we're looking for.
Well, so we do look at that, but I think those schools all have strengths, but I think there's the far more opportunity and advantage of a Cape Fear Academy education. Yeah, and I'll get to the. All right, let me finish the second one. The second part was the relationship between tuition increases and enrollment dropping. That's a little bit more difficult. I mean, we know that was a cause the first 2 years. Now it's pretty hard to determine what the relationship is. We do exit interviews, and we try to gauge, how many folks left for financial reasons, and it's hard. One of the data points is there's two ways you can look at that. There's one other way to look at that is the students who receive financial aid here. How are they leaving in any more disproportionate proportion than other students? And the answer is no. So pretty hard to know. We think the quality of the program here is outstanding, and obviously we feel it's absolutely worth every bit of that tuition. But I don't know if I'm not sure that was a great answer to the latter part. And I think it's a tough thing to figure out. Yeah, question? Yeah. So that's a good question. So can I compare the data? So like SAT, standardized test score data. Standardized test score data, there's no way to get their data. And they won't share it. Right. Yeah. Well, all I can tell you is I know our SAT scores are higher, but like as someone said before, that's because we admit students. That's not a real gauge of achievement. Right, right. But there's no way, they won't share. Well, I mean, I could ask them to share their standardized testing data with me, and they won't. So, I mean, I don't know how I would get that data. Yeah, they do different tests. But even if they the data that I could get on their Iowas would be the same thing as the SAT data. It would show that their average student is not in the 90th percentile here as ours. It would show their average is probably in the 70th percentile, is my guess. It's not as strong a student base. But I can't, if they'd share their AP test scores, I'd be happy to show you that. That's more an indication of actual achievement based on student learning. Yeah. I could look, to be fair to them, I haven't looked for their AP scores.
Do they teach AP?
And the numbers, that's a good question.
I don't think they do. Yeah,
So they teach some APs, but that's a really good question.
that's a certification, though. That's the update.
I mean, that's something that I can look quickly online, and I can find out. And if I discover that, I will publish that. Yeah. I mean, I'd love to do that.
I've done a little bit of that research in some of the other project converters actually complete, and unless something's changed in the last couple of months, those statistics are not available. They're not there, even when we call to ask them, they're not willing to share. I'm just throwing that out there. That's been in the last less than 6 months. We try.
Thanks. Thank you for that. Because, you know, some of the all of the AP data that I showed you comes right off the web. That those schools publish that in what they call a school profile. That's the AP data. So, and yeah, so it's a matter of looking. Okay, yeah. Yeah.
You're looking at an increase in overall the full upper school of 130,000, but you're also talking about increasing enrollment. You bring in 10 new kids.
Okay. Okay, right, that's a good question. This talks about increasing enrollment. I would love to increase enrollment, but given recent history and current applications, this budget is based on a set enrollment. Current numbers, right. And I can't, and the board, I think, is wise in this. The board can't budget on a hope. I mean, that's just not good fiscal responsibility. You know, if it turns out we are over-enrolled and we have additional income coming in, then we can figure out how best to use that and prepare for the next year. But right now, we're budgeted on the same enrollment we have this year. Correct. That's right.
You've got to have 65 kindergartners to make up the 65 seniors.
Right, not exactly that way. But, but in a sense, next year's senior class will be 10 fewer. So we have to make up those 10 somewhere. I mean, there's lots of opportunity to do that, but we need to do it. And I'm confident we will, but you can't budget based on your hope. Yeah? Right, so the question is, if there were a discount for multiple students, how would that impact enrollment and retention? Yeah, I don't know the answer to that either. But philosophically, there's two ways you can look at that. One, you can look at it as an enrollment or marketing tool. But the second way is look at, it costs the same to educate each student, whether you're a sibling or not. And if you're going to discount for a sibling, for that, regardless of a family's ability to pay, there's the concern about how good a business decision that is. Certainly, siblings who receive aid, it's a different situation. But I hear what you're saying. All right, it just about brings us to the end. Oh, I don't know if you're interested in this. I'm going to share it with you. Aspirational schools. I share this because in many ways the education we get here is the equal to the schools above us, and yet tuition is quite low. Different markets, different areas of the country, the state, you can make of that what you will. I have no interest in raising tuition to their levels. Believe me, I don't. Okay? And we're not going to keep pace with them. But that is something for folks to realize. More interesting to me is this. Our strategic planning committee picked 5, actually there's a 5th school that's not on here. We picked 5 schools that we thought were really similar to this school, or similar enough that we want to compare data. We want to compare testing data, enrollment data, course offerings, everything. We're just starting to do that. Next year, you're going to see more slides that compare us to these schools. We pick these schools because they're in cities that are demographically similar to Wilmington. Similar in the population, similar in the average, in economic conditions, and similar in that they have a pre-K through 12 independent school of a similar nature to us. So you can see where we are with tuition compared to these schools. This is Montgomery, Alabama. Athens Academy is in Georgia, and Carolina Day is out in Nashville. And the other is Savannah Country Day in Georgia, and I wasn't able to get the data on that yet. I don't know why, but I'll have to add that next year, so that gives you a sense. So, in closing, all right, so let me sum this up in closing. So first of all, I need to really emphasize how much I've enjoyed meeting most of you and many of your children. It's been a great 6 months learning about the school and getting to meet the kids. Your children are absolutely wonderful. The second thing is I think the school is in a strong place, and I think it can be in a much stronger place and will be there in the next few years. There's ways that we can really elevate the academic and extracurricular program of the school, and I'm looking forward to doing that. I think this school is what our business manager often tells me is an untapped gold mine. Now, I might say just tapped slightly because you're all here. But I'm glad I'm here and look forward to working with you this year and in years to come. And the last thing, by the way, that I've been told to do is this. So I hope to see you Friday. And I'm happy to stay after and talk to you more specifically or individually. So thanks very much.